This week at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, the spotlight shifted sharply onto businessman Suleiman Carrim, and what unfolded raised new questions about money, influence, and political connections inside South Africa's justice system. What started as routine questioning quickly escalated into a tense exchange over undisclosed payments, missing financial details, and the role Carrim may have played in a controversial police tender. Investigators revealed transactions that Carrim allegedly failed to disclose in his written statement, triggering a fresh round of questioning from the Commission's evidence leaders. The issue revolves around millions of rands moving between companies linked to Carrim and a firm connected to alleged tender figure Vusimuzi Matlala, whose company previously secured a massive contract with the South African Police Service. As the questioning unfolded, the Commission began probing whether Carrim's financial dealings were simply business investments or part of a much larger network of influence. And the biggest question now is this: did the Commission just uncover a financial trail that changes the direction of the entire investigation? To understand why Carrim's testimony matters, it's important to step back and look at the broader investigation. The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry was established by President Cyril Ramaphosa in 2025 to investigate allegations of corruption, criminal infiltration, and political interference within South Africa's criminal justice system. The inquiry, chaired by retired Constitutional Court Judge Mbuyiseli Madlanga, has been examining claims that powerful figures may have manipulated police investigations, influenced tenders, and protected criminal networks operating inside the state. Carrim's name surfaced during earlier testimony from several witnesses who suggested he may have acted as a middleman between political figures and business interests tied to policing contracts. One contract in particular has become central to the investigation: a health screening contract worth hundreds of millions of rand awarded to a company linked to Matlala. Investigators are examining whether political influence was used to secure payments connected to that deal. Carrim has denied wrongdoing and insists that his involvement was purely business-related. But this week, evidence leaders began digging deeper into the financial records. And that's when the questioning became far more intense. The first major moment came during questioning about payments connected to a company called Medicare 24. Evidence leader advocate Matthew Chaskalson revealed that investigators discovered two payments linked to Carrim that were not mentioned in his initial statement to the Commission. According to financial records presented during the hearing, one payment was approximately R1 million, followed months later by another payment of R1.1 million. Both payments were allegedly made to the same company connected to Matlala.
While I was looking for that purpose, I stumbled across the fact that there were two substantial payments from Tasmika Construction, another company of Mr. Carrim, into Medicare 24, which he didn't mention in his statement, and which I would like to ask him about because he certainly should have mentioned them in his statement. The one payment is a payment of 1 million on the 27th of June 2024. The second payment is a payment of 1.12 million on 7 October 2024. There is no innocent explanation for just overlooking the fact that more than 2 million rands beyond what you have disclosed also happen to be paid.
The significance of this moment is not simply about the money. It's about disclosure. Commissions of inquiry rely heavily on witness statements submitted before testimony begins. When new financial transactions appear during questioning that were not previously disclosed, investigators immediately start asking two questions. Was the omission accidental, or was information deliberately withheld? Carrim's legal team responded by arguing that the summons issued by the Commission did not specifically require their client to disclose all of his business dealings. That argument introduces an important legal dynamic. Instead of focusing on the substance of the payments themselves, the defense strategy appears to be focusing on procedure, questioning whether the Commission had the authority to demand certain information. This is a familiar tactic in major commissions: challenge the process in order to weaken the impact of the evidence. But the Commission did not appear convinced that the issue was purely procedural. The second major moment of the week involved Carrim's explanation of his financial relationship with Matlala's business network. During testimony, Carrim stated that he had invested $10 million into a business venture connected to Matlala, but claimed he only received about $1.75 million back, resulting in a significant loss.
A relatively simple agreement. You advance 10 million. You will be repaid. You'll get a return of an additional 10 million over the 3-year contract, and repayments will take the form of 10% of all payments. And you explain the monies that you advanced in respect of that agreement. That was the version in the statement.
This testimony introduces a very different narrative. Carrim's position is that he was not profiting from influence. He was actually losing money on a business investment. If that claim is accurate, it complicates the allegation that payments were made as political kickbacks. However, investigators are likely examining whether the investment itself served another purpose. In corruption investigations, financial relationships often blur the line between legitimate investment and influence networks. Even if money changes hands under the label of investment, investigators ask whether those transactions help create access to political power, government officials, or state contracts. That is the broader context in which the Commission appears to be analyzing Carrim's financial dealings. And it explains why even relatively small transactions, compared to the size of the contract involved, can become crucial pieces of evidence. When you look at the events of this week together, a pattern begins to emerge. First, Carrim attempted to stop his appearance before the Commission through a high court application, arguing that the subpoena was unfair. The court dismissed that application and ordered him to testify. Second, his legal team repeatedly raised concerns about documents being delivered late or new issues being introduced during questioning. And third, investigators uncovered financial transactions that had not been included in his initial statement. Taken together, these developments highlight a growing tension between the Commission's investigators and Carrim's defense. On one side, the Commission appears determined to map the financial network surrounding the SAPS contract and the people connected to it. On the other side, Carrim's legal team is pushing back against what they describe as procedural unfairness. This dynamic is common in high-profile commissions, but it also signals that Carrim's testimony may become one of the more significant chapters in the entire inquiry. Because if investigators are able to link financial transactions, political influence, and state contracts together, the implications could extend far beyond a single witness. Looking ahead, the Commission is expected to continue examining financial records, business relationships, and the role that intermediaries may have played in the police tender system. Carrim's testimony could also lead investigators to revisit earlier witnesses and re-examine their claims in light of new financial information. The key question now is whether the payments and investments discussed this week were isolated transactions or part of a much larger network of influence operating behind the scenes. Commissions of inquiry rarely move quickly, but week by week, small pieces of evidence begin forming a much larger picture. And as the hearings continue, the testimony of witnesses like Suleiman Carrim may help reveal whether South Africa's criminal justice system was simply under pressure from corruption or whether parts of it were actively infiltrated. For viewers following the investigation, the next set of hearings could be crucial, because the answers may determine whether this story ends as a disputed business relationship or something far more serious.